today's episode, or in today's show, I've got a very exciting, or I'm on a very exciting visit to the Blaauwklippen estate, where I'm chatting to Rolf Zeitvogel. Welcome, Rolf.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Rolf has been. How long you've been in the? You from the Black Forest area?
Well, I grew up in the Black Forest, and somewhere along the line, South Africa was with me. Since '92, I came first to South Africa.
Okay.
But since 2002, I call myself an immigrant.
Okay. And at the moment, I think the Black Forest is very famous for gin, isn't it?
Well, definitely. I mean, if you take Monkey Ching, it came out of Black Forest as a global brand that came out of nowhere.
Yeah. And otherwise, the Black Forest is also known for nice cake, and obviously, with that nice cake, there's some very good schnapps that goes into that, isn't it?
It's the best part of the recipe, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, Rolf, you trained to be a distiller in Germany, or what is your background?
No, I cannot say I did the full training as a distiller by school.
Yeah.
My degree is actually winemaker.
Winemaker. So okay. That's why you're in the Cape.
Yeah, exactly. The wine brought me to the Cape.
Yeah.
But growing up in third generation as winemaker, it has been traditional, a classical structure that there was a distillery with a wine estate, and my grandfather still had a distillery. So yes, I grew up with distilling, as I grew up with winemaking, as I grew up with good food.
Yeah,
that was the Black Forest well known for.
Okay, and you came to South Africa then as a winemaker for?
I came in '92 as a student because I did my winemaker degree. I was very young to finalize my normal winemaker degree. Now this is more a type of apprenticeship than a classical university degree.
Sure.
And then you need to be 21 years old to do actually your master degree by German law.
Yeah.
So I had to bridge a little bit some time. Yeah. And via an internship I did actually at the Mosel River in Germany to learn a little bit about the Riesling from the Mosel and the Elbling from the Mosel. I met a gentleman that had contacts to South Africa at the time and offered me to organize me internship in South Africa. And you're young, you want to explore the world.
Course.
So under that circumstances, of course, I said, yes, I will go when you organize it for me. Never thought he comes back, but he did. And then in '92 I came actually for half a year to South Africa, and I did 3 months at the Bergkelder at the time, today Distiller, and traveled 4 months South Africa, which was an amazing time, and 2 months at KWV. And then unfortunately I had to leave home to do my master degree, but it was a type of feeling all of a sudden homesick for another country. And I came every second year down again to South Africa, latest, to either actually work somewhere or do some holiday or some traveling or visiting of friends. And out of that, I think it was clear that one day I will end up in South Africa, and I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah. Okay. And how did that actually happen? I mean, so you went back and where did you work in Germany?
Look, I took out
as a winemaker.
I was winemaker in a small co-op, which is a little bit bigger than Blaauwklippen, but really just a little bit. And the co-op was well known for one of the oldest wine slopes in Germany called Stich den Buben, dating back to 1474. So quite a historical thing. And I took over from my dad there as winemaker and moved then on in my career to the Kaiserstuhl, known also for very warm climate, more the Burgundy varieties actually found there. And I was young and there was not much more actually that I could grow into except actually go on and study again. And I left my name in South Africa because here it was a lot of growing and new structures and going forward and seeing actually space for opportunities, I said, well, it would be great one day to make wine in South Africa. I was then approached by an owner of a wine estate called Kapaya, and that was a brand new project starting on a wheat farm in the on the west coast side, on the Western Cape. And I was part there to open up the cellar, did the first vintage, which was very exciting. I worked with Tibor Gal at the time. Now Tibor Gal, to give you an idea, is a Hungarian winemaker that was the first one ever that achieved 100 Parker points. And he
You'll have to explain that to me.
Well, Parker is in America the what can I say, the wine rating capacity.
Okay.
And to have from Parker 100 points is like being actually by the Queen and getting the Lord. So under that circumstances, he was the first ever that got 100 points, which is the perfect product. And to work with this man and to get a little bit of his philosophy, learn about his philosophy, which had a lot to do with terroir, which had a lot to do with back to really the basics of winemaking, the belief in a vineyard, the belief in microbiology in a vineyard, which has to do with the wild yeast that you use to ferment, not adding yeast, which has to do with the wild bacteria, which is doing for you the malolactic fermentation instead of adding bacteria. It's the basics of back to winemaking, which starts in the vineyards, and it was for me fantastic to have somebody that really put a holistic approach behind that very old tradition of winemaking. And this is what I try to also actually implement here at Blaauwklippen. It took me a few years, but it was a really very interesting journey to be part of, and it is still an interesting journey to be part of.
So from the West Coast, then you came to Blaauwklippen?
Well, then I relocated actually after a year with my family to Blaauwklippen, and I started at Blaauwklippen as winemaker. A few months later, I was also then looking after the vineyards with a very aged and experienced viticulturist, Kovi, and with him I did the first few vintages here at Blaauwklippen. We did a lot of changes, we planted new vineyards, we went for high density, which means we doubled up the plants per hectare compared to a traditional way of farming in South Africa. We changed irrigation and. So it was a different approach, and we got some beautiful wines out of that. And at the same time, I mean, Blaauwklippen stands for Zinfandel. I learned a cultivar to love that I first, maybe rather, I must say, had a bit of a distance to, because it is a very challenging cultivar as such to farm with. But I'm very happy today that I had the chance to learn actually this cultivar to know, and today to love. I mean, in my little world, I call it the diva. And you know, a diva you have this love-hate relationship with. And this is exactly what I went through in emotions with Zinfandel. And today, sometimes the diva is still coming back and give me some moments. And
you also distill that, or I mean, the brand.
Well, then comes the distilling, of course.
No, but I mean that's the grappa. You make a grappa from that.
We making a grappa from the Zinfandel, and what happened there is just Zinfandel as such. When you ripen the grape. It is a very thin-skinned berry. Okay. So as soon as there is some sun penetration, you get a raisin characteristic. And so you press out your wine as such, but you still have a slight juiciness in the skins, in the husk. And there's so much flavor still in it that we decided actually to take this skins straight from the press to the distillery and distill then actually the grappa, which is today Blaauwklippen Zinfandel Grappa Reserve.
Okay, beautiful bottle. It looks deceivingly like a bottle of very expensive brandy, and I've seen in the trade that it ends up in the brandy or in the pot still brandy category rather than anywhere else.
Well, I think from that side, it's interesting that you say that, because I describe it very often between a crapper and a cognac. I would not go towards brandy, because for me brandy is a little bit more heavier as such in his structure. But cognac has a little bit more elegance, a little bit more finesse, and I think what we got right with the distilling process and the approach we took from the maturation in wood was that we said we don't want to have the more bitey alcohol characteristic that a crapper brings along, where a lot of people immediately get reminded on Mampur. So you have more elegance, you have more finesse, more fruitiness in that, but at the same time have a style of a brown spirit, and with that have actually all the nutty flavors, have the smoky flavors in it, but that all very nearly wine-based, grape-based, so very elegant, polished, not too heavy in their expression, and that is actually what the crapper is all about. So yes, you're right, the packaging is the one beautiful thing, but I think if you have it in the glass, it holds what it promises, and actually, in my opinion, actually succeeds what it promises in packaging.
Okay, we'll try and get some more into the trade that people can look out for it.
Well, I hope so, and I think if we see it here on our tasting floor here at Blaauwklippen, where people can come and taste actually all our products, people coming back to it, because due to the elegance, because due to this unexpected wonderful layers of fruit and polished flavors, it's not really anymore that you have a high alcohol drink. It's about actually that you have an enjoyment in a glass in front of you. Okay,
and the family that owns this, it's also a German family?
It's a German family that owns it since 2000.
Okay.
And
they were also involved in Paulaner.
Exactly.
On the waterfront.
It's actually, in a way, you could say actually a beer family.
Oh, is it a beer family?
They own actually the Paulaner brand and Hackabschor.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and a few other ones.
Okay.
So they have, definitely a good relationship to.
And was the brewery still open when you started, the one on the waterfront?
Yes, actually it was still open. It was for me actually a sad eye to see it closing down.
Would be beautiful. You could have moved it,
Well, it in one way, yes. It even has been at the point a little discussion about that one. However, to bring a wine estate and a brewery together may work, but it's not a given. And I would love to see Paulaner back in South Africa, please, definitely, because it's a beautiful beer.
Okay. And then you also launched a few other brands, the pot still brandies, or were those around before you?
Well, the brandy has been in the barrel when I arrived here. And to be honest to you, it was not my first priority to look at it. So the brandy had time to mature nicely in the barrels, and we launched then a 5-year-old brandy as a first label, which is not anymore continued in the meanwhile, and after that we went for the 8 and the 10-year-old, which are both established on the market now. Specifically the 10-year-old gets really a great following, and I think it's a fantastic product, value for money. It's a top class brandy which is still, I would say, very attractive priced at this moment in time.
And then the accident happened? You mentioned something about
it's the before and after, which is an aperitif. It's the most beautiful accident, the most beautiful oops we ever had in the cellar. And the story is that my previous winemaker assistant, myself, on a Friday went in the cellar to taste wines. And on a Friday you don't spit, so we had a few wines to taste, and we had a good mood going along. And he served me our Red Zinfandel Noble Late Harvest from the barrel into my tasting glass, and we tasted it. We talked about actually when we want to bottle it and everything. But as I say, we have been in a good mood, and there was a lot of other talk around that as well. And we went on to taste actually the 8-year-old brandy to decide which barrel or cask we're taking next up for bottling. And he served me by accident the brandy in a high strength, in the barrel strength, which is by around about 65, 67 volume percent, on top of a little bit of leftover of the red noble late harvest Zinfandel. Now this oops in the glass gave both of us a beautiful smile in the face, because we both liked a lot what we had in the glass, but we could not really remember anymore what happened now.
Okay.
And 2 weeks later I phoned him and said, listen, that thing is not going out of my mind, so let's get all ingredients together and let's play around with it. And that's how we started at the end of the day, the before and after. And today the brandy and the before and after, or a bottle of crupper and the before and after, go always together, because very classical. You have the gentleman walking into the tasting and he tastes some of the brandy or the crupper and he says, oh, wonderful product. And then it comes always, may I, you know, this type of. And she stands there and looks at him and says, well, you spend now a bit of money, so what do I spend for, you know? And so he normally gets his brandy or crupper and she gets a bottle of before and after, and both are happy.
And that, what is that? It's an aperitif? So how many?
Well, it's an aperitif, so from the alcohol side you only have 16 volume percent alcohol, so it's actually lower than a port, because today's ports are by 17 and a half, 18. But it's the fresher fruit. As it comes from the noble late harvest, you have this concentrated bit of jaminess in it, but a lot of berry fruit, and you have a lot of spice with it. And then just this little bit of brandy that is in it lifts all of these flavors beautifully. But it's not alcoholic, it's more actually sweet on the palate. And yeah, it's a beautiful aperitif, but it's also a beautiful degustif. So after the meal, to sit down, or in an old classical way, this afternoon little sip of a port can be easily replaced with a before and after. And for South African terms, the nice part is actually you can keep it in the fridge and bring it out slightly chilled, which of course refreshes a little bit as you enjoy it. So it made his way actually in a lot of households in the meanwhile, where people have a very unique drink in the house, because this product as such I have not found anywhere in the world so far. So it's very unique in its kind.
And it's in a beautiful bottle, so it makes a beautiful gift.
And it makes again a beautiful gift, absolutely.
Yeah. And then you started a distillery, and on the estate.
We started a distillery, which is...
Or was the distillery here? I mean, the brandy tradition and everything, was it on the...
No, actually not. The brandy was a product from Blaauwklippen and is still a product from Blaauwklippen. This very much belongs to the winery and to the brand of Blaauwklippen. And there are 2 old pot stills actually standing in the cellar for that, where the brandies have been distilled. But what happened is actually that quite a few years back, I had a gentleman from Switzerland, and Swiss people are known for one thing next to cheese, and that is money. And he did very successful for himself, and he started to enjoy good wine, good cigars, and he came to South Africa to learn a little bit more about winemaking. And he asked me if I would have space for him to be part of a vintage in the cellar, and that's how we started to talk to each other and learned more from each other. And with him together I met actually then a gentleman which is quite a well-known master distiller in Germany, and we 3 sat together and said, well, it would be quite nice to start a little distillery that is more focused on crupper, that is more focused on fruit spirits or eau de vie.
Which is a big thing in the Black Forest.
Which is a very big thing in the Black Forest, because it's a very elegant and light style of alcohol. And so we started a company called Gentleman Spirits in 2012. And we plodded along. We did some Williams, which is a very classical German pear schnapps, which is made from the Bonn-Crescent pear. And I mean, the fruit grows beautifully here in the Cape, so we're getting the fruit here, crushing on site, fermenting the fruit to pulp, and then distill out of this beautiful pulp the flavor and the alcohol for fantastic pear schnapps. And we did grappas, and we went on the market under Gentleman Spirits label first. But we had to realize that the South African market is limited when it comes to grappa as well as to fruit spirits. There is a bit of interest of good distills, but as I say, if you are not grown into it, or if you have not properly introduced to it, it is rather a challenge. And well, we had a bit of restructuring. The company went through also of learning by doing, and we came out as the Swiss partner and myself. We took over all the shares and developed in 2015 the brand 333. Now, for a few of the listeners, maybe 333 will now immediately say, "Wait, isn't that this gin?" Yes, absolutely. And the brand 333 was developed first and most of all for the gins that we know today. And it has been in 2015, and 333 came actually in because the distillery is at Blaauwklippen. However, it is not Blaauwklippen Distillery. But Blaauwklippen turned in 2015 333 years.
So you stole the
name. We kept the link to it without actually talking about Blaauwklippen or talking in a way about the beautiful history Blaauwklippen has. We're saying on the label that we are distilling at Blaauwklippen, but that's the link that we created with it. And this journey with the gin the last 2 years was just absolutely amazing. We first started.
It's really nice to be part of such an explosion, isn't it?
Well, I mean, we didn't know really what will happen to us, to be honest to you, because it was rather really seen as a hobby, to start as a hobby. However, it's in the meanwhile a beautiful structured hobby that demands a bit more personnel and a few more distilleries. But we started at the time with just distilling juniper as such, for the idea of understanding what flavors we can unlock and for understanding of what style we want to go with the gin.
And where did you get the distillery? Was it the Old Gentleman's Distillery?
That was a distillery that we imported at the end of the day from Germany under the Gentleman Spirits time, and in the meanwhile we imported 2 more. So it is equipment which we know from the Black Forest times. It's equipment that we trust. And it's equipment that we can use for all specialities that we distill. So it's also a good product or a good distillery to use for grappa or for pear schnapps. So we still actually distill everything on the imported machines that we have here.
Yeah, and you said, I mean, the equipment comes from, you bought it off your brother-in-law and your uncle or what?
Yeah, the first one came in actually as an investment with the partnerships that we had at the time.
So that was a new one? Or?
That was a fairly new equipment, and it's still our flagship distillery. However, then I visited my family in Germany, and they had, in the yard, old distillery standing, beautiful copper pot still. And I said, "What are you doing with this distill?" "Well, they just got it out of an old farmhouse that was broken down, and they're not really sure of what they want to do with it." And I said, "Well, I maybe have the solution for you. I would like to have this distillery in South Africa." So I bought it from them, and the equipment the distillery is somewhere built beginning of the 70s, so it has a few months a few months or moons of age.
Made some nice Kirschwasser or Williams, isn't it?
There was a little bit of Kirschwasser and Williams going through to this machine, I'm pretty sure. But look, it's the principle of a distillery, first and most of all, stays the same. And it is what you do with the technology and how you treat the technology to get the best out of. And that's why I was very keen to go that route and get this type of older machine in. And now, just a few months back, again at a visit in Germany, my wife's uncle approached us because he also had a few distilleries in the family cooking, and he wanted to scale down. I mean, he turned 75, so he said, okay, I have done my part. So we decided to buy from him another one, which is vintage 77. Just a little bit younger as the previous one I spoke about. And yeah, so this equipment now is on site. The one is active, the older one is active for quite a while, and I hope in the next 2 to 3 weeks to start actually the third pot. And it's super exciting, of course. It's nearly like a family business going on, just on another side.
On another continent.
On another continent, on the most beautiful end of the world. But yeah, that's how it sometimes comes together.
Yeah. And so the brands or the gins that you make, you said something about juniper?
Yeah, coming back to the gins, well, we started with a juniper to distill at the time, and it was really at the beginning to say how much flavor is in juniper as such. And well, the easiest way to describe it, we decided to have actually 100% or just juniper gin on the market, because we believe really the flavor profile alone of that product is absolutely amazing. And it has proven up to today that it is absolutely accepted, and a lot of people love it for the simplicity of just having the juniper flavors in this gin. A lot of barmans like it because the mixologists of today, they want to have actually then their own creation on top. So they don't like too much this overloaded gins, which are so opulent that they hardly can do anything on the flavor side or on the flavor profile. And that is where the 100% gin actually plays a huge role out there in the market and on the trade and in the bars. And so yeah, we had this 100% juniper as a first idea, and the first distilling I put actually in 2014, Christmas. I put it into the shelf in a very simple way. It was a Bordeaux bottle, flint Bordeaux bottle, where you normally see a Riesling or white wine bottled in. I put a wine cork halfway into the bottle, and we made a very simple label and called that thing Rolf's Gin. My daughter was still numbering the labels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we put it in for a price at the time, I'm not sure anymore, it was something like 200, 210 Rand. Did no marketing at all, no advertisement, we just put it actually at the tasting room onto the shelf. And that thing flew from the shelf, and that was actually somewhere for us a great what can I call it? It gave us actually a very positive message that we did something right, that the people liked the elegance of the gin, that the people like at the end of the day the spice of the pure juniper. So that gave us the strong belief we have something that we can develop further. And with the development then of 333 as a brand, we said, okay, are we going in other directions than purely having this juniper gin? And we did quite a lot of tastings with different recipes, and out of that came that there is either a tendency to fruity gin or that there is something more on the herbal side. And that is exactly what we then also slowly but surely developed further. So we have the citrus gin, which is based still on a beautiful juniper base, but then have some lemon and some orange with it, just to freshen it up. I call it always the convenient gin, because all what you need is actually some ice and a good tonic, and you are done. You
don't need to add lemon.
You don't need to. you need not to cut a lemon or orange or anything.
Okay.
You have actually this beautiful fresh citrus flavor in the gin as such. And then the African botanical gin, the idea was really there to say the whole growth that we have here with fynbos is so amazing. So how can you capture a little bit of the Cape fynbos history in the bottle? And I mean, nothing is closer than to look at the end of the day at buchu and rooibos. And these are the two main ingredients at the end of the day that we have then in the African botanical. And you first have the buchu, this beautiful herbaceous type of and spicy type of entrance on the nose, and then comes actually this quite sweet filling type of rooibos with it. But all three gins are unsweetened, beautiful, elegant. You don't have really the alcoholic taste because there's so much complexity from the flavors that you actually can drink them neat. If you want to, you don't need at the end of the day to go with a tonic or anything else. It's beautiful just to serve them on the rocks and nibble along.
Yeah, and that's, I think the new trend is going towards sipping gins.
Well, I think it will at the end of the day somewhere also show where the quality is in gin. And I mean, for consumer today, there is a huge market out there in respect and offers out there in respect to gin products. However, I think it gets then interesting when you start to consume and drink a gin, which flavors are elegant and are refreshing, but not bothering you from the taste buds or from the health. And that are the ones that you will go back to. It's the elegance, it's the finesse, it's the redrinkability at the end of the day that makes, I think, the products talking for themselves. And there is no other way than to taste it neat first. And when we go into shows, more and more people come actually and ask first if they can taste neat, and then decide which cocktail they're going for, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And I can only stimulate and motivate and say, please come and ask for it, because that is what we share definitely as a first prize from our side as well, because we think we put so much effort into the product. If we then actually have the connoisseur that in that way nearly shows the respect to it and gives us this award back or reward back and tastes it neat and gives us his feedback, that's the most beautiful thing a distiller can get.
Maybe help me a little bit. I remember growing up that there was a product from Germany in a brown earthen bottle. What was it? Schinkenheger. Is that a gin? What is Schinkenheger?
Ooh, I'm not 100% sure now. Was it a corn or was it? I think it was a corn. Wasn't that the clay bottle that you were referring to?
Yeah, like a clay bottle.
I think it was a corn, if I'm correct.
It's a corn, but not. So it's got no relation to gin.
I don't think in that case that it was actually. No, I don't think it would have been a gin. Gin was very long somewhere under the radar.
Yeah.
And I think the German tradition was more on the south, on the fruit. On the fruit spirit or fruit snap side,
and in the north,
and in the north it was the corn. So I must admit I would not know now if there was a gin floating around. But please, I'm long gone from Germany, and I was maybe too young at the time to really to look after gin. I was more on wine when I was in Germany active.
Yeah. Okay. And are you? Can you? I mean, are there more developments that you've got on the in the distillery? You said something about your pears.
Yeah, we're doing quite a bit of pears because the fruit
is that mainly for export.
That is more for export because again, the Bon Crescent pear in South Africa would be like a shooter. I think the South Africans would drink it like a shooter. However, I think if somebody started to enjoy it and tasted it the first time, he will change the glass and he will go actually to a cognac glass because with the fruit and the expression that this elegant fruit schnapps brings along, you want to drink it also, nip it along like you would nip on a whiskey, something like that.
And that's the Williams.
And that's the Williams.
Because I think our relationship with Williams is probably on some ski slope in Austria or where they do a lot of Williams.
Absolutely, there you drink it as a shooter.
Yeah.
But I think going into restaurants, going into also that people drink more and more focused the spirit for their enjoyment. Spirit is not only anymore, let's say, a quick shooter for the first round and the second and the third round. That will be more on the skiing slope.
Yeah.
Because you want to go back to skiing again, maybe. Yeah. But I think here in South Africa, it's more in the restaurants. It's more actually maybe even enjoying it with a cigar or something like that. Sitting a little bit longer, you know.
So it's like a sipping brandy, nearly.
It's nearly like
a fruit brandy, isn't it?
It's a fruit brandy. Yeah, you could categorize it like that correctly.
Similar to the Schladerer brand, which I think is also from the Black Forest, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Philip Schladerer, actually a quite nice friend of mine, with his Kirschwasser, which they are very well known for, but they also do pear snaps and a few other things, and you see them from time to time. Actually, you see them from time to time on the shelf here in South Africa.
Rather expensive, but they're here.
Absolutely, and from time to time you still see a gap there. So people maybe still make it like Forest Todd, and buying a proper Kirschwasser for it. That could be. But yeah, I think we have in the meanwhile also with the 333 Williams. The opportunity to bring a local fruit snaps on the market, and we bottled it actually. It purely just needs to go out now to showcase what is possible here in South Africa in distilling.
We'll take a photo of the bottle. I think it looks beautiful, and then we can post it on. And as soon as it's ready, we can.
Absolutely, and with that, you spoke about a liqueur as well earlier. We're doing also Pear Liqueur. That is now the next big step coming up, because it lends to itself that you actually do a fruit extract. In other words, it's not just a classical sweetened spirit. What we did is actually we took a distilled spirit on the full ripe pear and extracted the sweetness and more flavor from this pear to make a liqueur. And I think that is will be fairly unique for South Africa. And I'm looking forward to also release that. I'm not sure when we get it done. We have a lot on our lap at the moment, but I hope to do it latest in the new year, and then actually come up next to a classical dry Williams Christ Snaps, or brandy as you called it. Then also to have a Williams Christ liqueur. Based really on the fruit extracted sweetness and not on added sweetness.
I can already see the German restaurants ordering this as a shooter.
Well, I think there is a great potential for it. Even what we actually spoke about with the one or the other restaurant, you know, classical in the Europe terms. When I grew up there, when you went to a Greek or when you went to a Yugoslavian restaurant, you got Uso or Slivovitz or something like that before the meal. It was the welcome shooter.
Oh, really?
So before you got anything served, there was a shooter glass on the table, and we thought it's a great culture actually to have that.
You're right. I've got a friend who's married to a Hungarian, and when I walk into the door, there's a schnapps in my hand.
That's exactly the point. And why not having something like that actually when you arrive in a restaurant in South Africa? And it mustn't be a schnapps with 43, but it can be maybe a liqueur.
Well, in the case of the Hungarian friend, it doesn't matter if it's 43.
But I see that as a little bit nearly as an appetizer, you know, as an aperitif, and it could become easily actually a restaurant culture in that way, to say, you know, but we're going there and there's a little surprise when you walk in. So we will see.
Yeah, and that's what I love about these cultures that are starting to come out, you know. Interesting traditions and stuff from all over the world. I think that we can learn so much about.
Well, if you take the Cape, I mean, one thing that fascinated me always, living here now 15 years, nearly 16 years, the cultures melted in a way together. I mean, unfortunately, there's also a lot of negative talk about cultures, but in principle, if you come from Europe, and you observe it now in South Africa, there's actually a lot of things functioning here that they still struggle with in other parts of the world. However, it's the same time also then the influence that comes by food, that comes by drinks, that comes by lifestyle along, and that makes it actually so beautiful. I mean, if you go to Cape Town or if you go to Johannesburg, Durban, wherever you go, I mean, if you think about the offers that you have in food, in restaurants that are there, the bar themes, what you get in the meanwhile, just gin revolution over the last 2 years, where a lot of bars actually now focused on and found from around the world products. I mean, we started the interview with monkey gin from the Black Forest. You find it in certain bars here as well. I think it's beautiful actually to get this cosmopolitan international vibe, and there is a lot still that can be done. I mean, it's sexy to come to South Africa, it's sexy to travel South Africa, and under that circumstances I think if we can keep this very multicultural type of offers in enjoyment going, it can bring us very far. Yeah,
and you showed me your new little bit of a rebranding on the bottle, which is, I guess, you aiming at export?
Not only, but also...
Are you already exporting the bottles?
We already started actually to sell the bottles in Europe, and what happened is actually if you go to classical countries like Germany or Switzerland, due to the law you're only allowed to sell liquors or spirits in 700 ml bottles. So we struggled with our 750 ml packaging to enter the market. And we felt strong enough with the research we did and with the partners we have overseas to go and get our own bottle made, which is a 500 ml bottle. Now, the 500 ml bottle in the base shape is still very much lent onto the classical packaging that people know from 333. However, we included now the 3 in the glass as such, as well as actually we stay clearly estate bottled in South Africa to be proudly South African. And what we also then tended to say is the first packaging we chose, it's a beautiful packaging, but it's very much cosmopolitan. So you could produce that anywhere in the world and it would fit. But we are South Africa. We have an African tradition here, and I think we should be proud of that. So we allowed ourselves to look at the symbols of the Ndebele tradition, and we integrated that into the label. Each of the 3 flavors has its own theme, and we also got the paper a little bit more structured, which makes us very proud because it's the first time that this type of paper ever was used on a distilled product globally seen. And that gives the bottle a very unique look and feel, but it definitely, I think, in a very elegant and smart way reflects also the African tradition that we have here, which I think we all are proud of.
Without putting like you said,
without putting an elephant or giraffe or crocodile on the label. I don't think that alone would reflect actually South Africa.
Yeah. And in terms of, have you got access to the travel market, or is it hard to get into the airports, the duty frees and?
No, actually, I must say we had, of course, traditional from Blaauwklippen side, a good link with the duty frees.
Okay.
And from that side, gin also made his way into it. So yes, we have the support there, and we are in ongoing exchange there with the relevant decision makers to see what other distilled products are worthwhile to go onto the duty-free shelves. One of our projects that we're also running at the moment is a 50 ml bottle. So let's call it a mini bar size. And we should be able also still late this year to get actually that packaging on the market, which will be flavor sorted. So it will be either the juniper or the citrus or the African botanical in the box, 12 bottles each. And it's a nice counter tool, or of course, if somebody wants to go for the mini bars to use it, or as gifts to use it. So there's the next step coming, and that could be definitely also something as a little takeaway again in the travel, because a lot of people are still scared to have, of course, a bottle on the plane or to travel with a bottle of glass, that it could break. So I think the minis will also have a nice impact on our future.
Yeah, I think the minis are exciting, especially as a gift and as sampling, because to buy a whole bottle of craft gin, as we call it, is quite a big investment. And to start off with a few of the minis, or even to use them in the trade as giveaways or as promotions, is quite a good idea.
Yeah, we spoke here also actually to a few hotels, more on the upmarket side.
Okay.
And they look at room drops.
Yeah.
Very classical, actually have the 3 flavors there. And it's a nice portion. I mean, it's either a double, a nice double gin or double top gin, or you can actually share the bottle if you want to. And it's a nice refresher if you arrive in the room and you sit for a while on the balcony before you go out again, you know. So it's a nice welcome. I think it could work very well. And also for boutique hotels, they see it as an opportunity to go again and say, we give it as a gift to the business people that come here, don't have the time really to explore the leisure side, but at least they take something with that later on, wherever they live in the world, takes them back to the time they enjoyed it in South Africa.
Yeah. Thank you, Rolf. What's the best way to taste this? Obviously, Blaauwklippen is open. There's a tasting room.
Blaauwklippen has a tasting room. We are 7 days a week open.
Beautiful tasting room. 7 days a week, okay.
7 days a week open. So from that side, whenever you're on the Cape, make a turn, come to Blaauwklippen.
And we're about 5 kilometers from Stellenbosch, or is it less?
Yeah, not even. I mean, we are the first wine farm, actually, when you drive to the south from Stellenbosch towards Somerset West. So very easy to find on the R44. And the easiest is actually to come there. You can taste the wines, you can taste the spirits, everything is there for tasting. We have a brandy hub.
You've got a few other brandies on
which is the only one in South Africa. So you can actually taste even some other craft brandies that are produced
from as far as I saw Grundheim there. They're quite far away.
Yeah, there are quite a few actually where you normally don't want to drive anymore when you tasted it afterwards. But that was exactly the idea, because there is not such a hub in South Africa. I see it still as a bit of a critical point, because we have a lot of beautiful brandies made in South Africa, but there's nowhere a place where you can really taste them. So in Bordeaux, they have this Maison de Vin, where you go actually and taste the regional wines. And I stimulated a few times the thought to say, why are we not doing something in Cape Town, where there would be, like at the waterfront or so, a beautiful place to do something for wine, to do something for the spirits as well, and say, come and indulge in what this region is doing. I think there's a lot of potential, because if you want to taste today a bigger part of what gets produced in South Africa, you have to, at the end of the day, most of the time, pay in a hotel, sit there at the bar, and then you always have to drink the full shot at least. And it's maybe still a gap in the marketing that can be used as a system, or as an offer, let's say it like that, at certain selected places. But I think it's also something that we can still carry into the trade as an idea.
I mean, obviously the gin bars are popping up all around the Cape, especially. Is there a place where you can taste all these brandies in a restaurant or in a hotel?
Well, there are a few places that have big collections of gins or brandies. However, it's still, I mean, you buy at the end of the day a shot or a tot, and think about it. If you want to taste 5 or 6, I mean, you need to stand strong on that one. It's possible, of course, but I think to just have a sip, to taste would be beautiful. Now, I know that certain places allow actually their barkeeper to offer this sip first, which is great. But I don't think that the barkeeper will give you 5 sips. He will start to charge one day, and there is exactly the difference. And come on, at the end of the day, our decision is made with a palate and what we enjoy and what we feel happy with. It's beautiful then to take along because you are convinced about it, you tasted it, you like it, so you will gladly open it up and celebrate with it again.
Yeah. Okay, and so let's just finish that. You said you open here at you also have a farmers market on the estate?
We have a beautiful market every Sunday, which
so
is
that's Sundays. Okay.
Every Sunday, summer as winter. It's 6 years old by now.
A big attraction, I believe. I've never been.
It's beautiful, and it's a very big attraction. It's a landmark. We call it the Blaauwklippen Family Market. There is actually a Facebook site where people can follow. We have changing musician every week is another one here. We have around about 80-90 stores in average between craft and food, and of course wine and spirits and beer. There is also a guy that is making beautiful gin cocktails. So it is a market where you go with a family. There's a lot to play for the kids, a lot of attractions, inclusive pony rides for the little ones. And on the other side, it's what we spoke earlier about, this culture of all kinds of food, from the German bratwurst via the samosas, via Mexican food, to a classical burger. You find it everything. So it is really in that way an attraction and a beautiful place to be, to hang out on a Sunday
and to taste.
To taste, exactly.
Yeah, and so I think it's a beautiful place. I'm overwhelmed by obviously the old farm and the old estate and everything, and it just brings out the real craftiness or the handwork or the artisanal side of the gin and the distillery, so that it's not just a brand, like it's a real, it's got heritage and it's made on an estate.
Yeah, I think this is us. What you see is what you get, and even while we maybe have not everything at the moment on offer to be public,
because you're working in the distillery.
Because we're working in the distillery, and it's an ongoing working there. If somebody is interested, we of course taking the person actually up and showing that. It's not that we hide it, but it's also that we really have a working distillery and not a show distillery. However, I think Blaauwklippen as such, with a history of more than 335 years in the meanwhile, brings it along. It is a place which always has been rooted, where all the people that had a management position or a decision-making position have been very close to the place. The history of the farm workers that have been staying here for generations. This is just also down to earth and rooted, that it's beautiful actually to keep something like that and maintain something like that. The farmhouse, the Jonkershuis, the cellar buildings, it's all like a grown structure. It's not one of this new out of the architecture bureau styled winery. It is about the simplicity of winemaking and going back to the roots, and I repeat myself, what you see is what you get. This is what we are, but what we're taking care of is the vineyards, the terroir. You see it when you come in. What we're taking care of is where we take our fruit from to distill. The process we're taking care of, the maintenance of maturation. In other words, when you ripen a wine in the barrel, or if you ripen a crupper in the barrel, you make sure that everything is as good as possible taken care of. And then it's easy at the end of the day to later on just finalize a product and bring it onto the market and taste it with people. Then it's the product itself that convinces. The story just actually explains what we have done. And if you come here and you heard the story before, it will make click for you easily, because you will see exactly that, what we told you before, what we're doing and what we are.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a big invitation to come and experience the brand and the wines and the spirits here on the estate. Thanks for your time, Rolf, and I certainly look forward to bringing my family here and showing this wonderful place to them.
Well, I'm looking forward to have you soon back.
Yeah.
It was great to having you on site, and yeah, to all the listeners out there, please come and enjoy Blaauwklippen at his best. And yeah, we are here for work, and our work is to make you a platform for celebration.
Lovely. Thanks, Rolf.
Thank you.